in your experience, kasi you've touched on several aspects now, other apart from the security and the privacy of the data. You're talking about the quality. You're
Yes.
talking about unintended consequences of the rules. Is that did you see that kind of a natural extension of a privacy role, or is this something that is there another role that needs to exist to do kind of all of that, or is
Well,
this where the business needs to step in and be more accountable for those things?
okay, so two schools of thought. You can actually, privacy can be a stand-in for
Mm.
governance of AI, but depends on the scale that you're implementing AI,
Okay.
right? If you are implementing uh, AI, depends on the organization, right? If the scale of your operations is AI-led, then I personally think, then you should have a governance team just focus on AI,
Yep.
right? And maybe privacy is subsumed within because it is a subset, right? For us, there is no, at least in PLDT group, we have not set up, we have not set up a group yet, but there is talk about setting up something. But privacy becomes the default at this point because again,
Position.
we look at the way we do going back to the privacy impact assessment. The core of the privacy impact assessment is really the data flow.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really understanding from acquisition to storage to disposal. And if you look at before the disposal part, right, AI focuses as well on that, right? But if we have to go deeper because of the power, right, of the tool potentially, then uh, you could actually provide the wrong service or something that again this can discriminate against the subscriber, and that's what we are guarding against.
You see that some data, I mean, even in kind of without AI, some data are more important than others as far as privacy is concerned. In when you bring it to AI, it becomes even more the case. For example, biometric data becomes very, very
Oh yeah,
sensitive.
that's
Facial rec.
sensitive person information. Yes.
Oo. And then I'm just gonna think parang lateral examples, no. In a database, for example, uh it's easy for someone to implement an opt-out, like don't put me in the database or at least mask me when you put me there. But once you've trained data into a model, as far as I know, parang hirap naman yata, ang hirap na mag-opt-out. I think this is a big challenge, for example, in the image generation tools, no, and people
Mm.
are saying copyright infringement yan, and literally short of throwing out the entire model and retraining a totally new one, it's going to be hard to edit out, let's say, any example of a Picasso coming through. So do you see that, or how would you react to that from a privacy standpoint? Because that gets really murky and complicated later on once models start getting developed.
Okay, in terms of the implementation, again, I will just focus on how we've implemented AI so far,
Sure,
right?
sure.
We always insist on we always insist on transparency and explainability,
Yeah.
right? So that we can trace. It's really about the traceability of the data, right? And if we need to remove, that means we remove from all systems that actually attach to it. So we would insist on the same rigor when it comes to AI, right? So again, because that means that it has to be developed with the ability to actually make those edits,
Mm.
right? Because if you don't, then you run the risk of what you said. Then how do you decouple it from what you've already developed, right? You need to be able to do that,
Yeah,
right?
one of
So if,
the, I mean, just to share, no, just to elucidate the topic, because I'm sure it's bound to give a lot of people headaches. I think this was just 48 hours ago or more. Microsoft started to release uh, some built for purpose, they call them small language models. Kasi nga, these large language models were trained on everything in the internet, and therefore it ingested all the stuff, good and bad, in the internet, in the quest to come up with a model that can decently communicate and converse. But what these researchers are showing is you don't need all of the crap on the internet to come up with a decent communication tool. You can have built for purpose, chatbots that obviously are smaller, easier to deploy, and use less power. But yun nga lang, there's a higher requirement on the domain expertise. Kunyari, gagawa ka ng medical chatbot, you better have some doctors around, no, to design that, as opposed to the one size fits all, throw everything in it, even the kitchen sink. So I guess from again, let's going back to impact assessment, that might be a dimension that's completely new or needs to modify certain parts of existing assessments. Any thoughts around how we would go about doing
There's
that?
actually, the AI Act actually provides the list already, if I'm not mistaken, on the areas that you need to look at,
right,
when it comes to the fundamental rights. And it actually is so encompassing. Because again, if you look at AI and how it affects the human condition, right? And this is what I was saying as well during that session. It affects the human condition. Therefore, it has to be encompassing, because we need to make sure that we are not discriminating, right? We are not providing, it will not, with the biases, right, are not there when we're evaluating, when the tool is doing the processing, because it can happen. It can definitely happen. So there's this case, right? YouTube was applying AI, and the rules that they actually just said was, okay, we need to increase engagement, right? But by increasing engagement, it actually was serving content that was extremist, right? Content. Therefore, because they know that people who are exposed to this type of content will really spend more time on the platform. But that is exactly something that we need to guard against, right? So they had to change. They had to put in more rules. So there has to be, if you look at the tenets, I think, of safety on AI, being able to the specification is so critical, right? When you do the actual order, right, to the tool, you need to be able to specify what are the business rules, what are the boundaries you're setting. Because if you don't, then the tool, because of how it is made, will just figure it out, right? Will figure out based on the goal that you've actually indicated, and it will not care,
right,
about putting those guardrails, unless therefore our responsibility is to put in those guardrails when we do the business.